This episode is supported by the American Resource Center, or the ARC. ARC is the first American space of its kind in Europe, and it exists for one reason: to connect Serbian talent with American opportunity. Whether you're 15 or 35, building in tech, entrepreneurship, AI, or creative industries, ARC gives you direct access to programs, mentorship, and networks that used to require a plane ticket to Silicon Valley. It's not just a space, it's a bridge, and all programs are free, and you can find them at Ložionica in Belgrade, and you can start building your path beyond borders.
If you're a startup founder from the Balkans, you'll eventually need a US company to sell into the US market, use Stripe, or raise VC money. But here's the problem. US lawyers charge between $600 and $1,000 an hour. Opening a bank account as a non-resident is a nightmare. You need a US phone number, operating address, and there are a lot of hidden costs plus lawyer lingo you can't understand. This is why we have partnered with Neobase. They are a team of Balkan founders who have been exactly where you are. They're 10 times cheaper than US lawyers, and they handle everything end to end, from the corporation, bank account setup, tax filings, and basically leaving you to focus on your own business. Head to neobase.co, book a free consultation, and mention Scale SE to get 10% discount off your LLC or C Corp setup.
Today's guest is Aleksandar Stojanovic, an ex-professional football player from Niš, Serbia, whose career ended with an injury that forced him to reinvent himself completely. He pivoted to teaching corporate trainings, worked with over 200 professors and companies like TSMC, NVIDIA, and Dell on corporate training. 5 years in, he spotted a gap in language that was broken, so he wrote a scientific paper on how you can use AI to fix that and built a startup called Refined Skills. This is a story about losing everything, rebuilding everything from scratch, and turning expertise into a startup. Let's break it down. I want to thank Aleks for coming on the episode today. Aleks, it's very nice to have you here, man.
Thanks, man. I mean, it's such a privilege to be here, and I'm so grateful for the invitation. I mean, I was really looking forward to this kind of podcast, especially with you guys. So,
all right, amazing. Yeah. Let's dive right in, right? So you are an ex-athlete, right?
Yep.
Most athletes, when they finish with sports, right, they have a struggle with figuring out like what's next. How did that period, like after your football injury, how did that period look like for you? Let's say the first 6 months.
Well, yeah. First of all, an outstanding question. For the past 6-7 months since our existence over Fine, I mean, nobody asked me like, how did we get here? Like, what drove me to this kind of success and ups and downs? And being an athlete certainly is probably the most, pinnacle of every single situation, good or bad, within our startup world. And my professional career in soccer was like my life, right? And basically, ever since that injury, especially the first 6 months, were atrocious for me, like terrible. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. Suddenly, the biggest part of your life just shuts down. All the things you've sacrificed, the discipline, the travelings, the risks, all these things, different countries, different cultures, just suddenly stops, right? And you have to find yourself. What are you going to do with your life now, right? And many people fall into this abyss of never finding anything. And I believe that in those 6 months of pure suffering, of, like being 24, 23, playing soccer for 17 years before that, your whole youth just, goes like, just like that. And I felt emotionally devastated, but it woke something up in me that, like, you now know how it feels to be at the bottom. That's how I felt. I definitely understand that some people felt worse and worse, and like, I'm not, but from my perspective, you feel like you don't have a purpose anymore, and like you say to yourself, okay, it only goes up from here, because you know how it is at the bottom, and you never want to go back there. And then, just my career trajectory just took off.
Mm-hmm. How did you transition to like doing like first English and then corporate trainings?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, like these questions are so emotional to me, because it, like I said, it's such a pivotal moment in my life. Ever since I was a kid, I was always a champion in English language, like in school. I never needed a book. I was getting tons of complaints from teachers for not buying the book or not taking the book to school for English because I never needed it. And in the beginning, it was kind of frustrating, but I never really cared. I didn't feel like any part of my brain worked for it. It was just like so natural to me. And then actually, my sister was the one who said like, there is a agency called Workforce Group that hires people to teach English to people in Asia. You might try. And I called him out like from desperation because I didn't know what to do with my life at that point. And it was like 6 months, 7 months after stopping my soccer career. And then when they heard me speak, they didn't believe that I was from Serbia in the first place. So I had to convince them, which is still a common practice, when we have interviews with investors from Serbia and companies. And immediately got hired, and I still have like my pay slip for $180 US as my first paycheck, like, as a reminder. My mom has it actually, but I still, protect it at all costs. It's just like a reminder of, these things that happened to me. But yeah, I mean, always was kind of like a natural path, and everything, all the great things that happen and the bad things especially, just converged and congested into this is what I want to do. We know the risks. I already failed at the past career. Like there's, it only gets better from here, right? That was something that I kept, I was, reminding myself of. And 9 years later, such a career behind me, and like in front of me is like an amazing journey. So, you know,
Cool, amazing. How did you transition from English to corporate trainings and working with some of the biggest companies like TSMC, Nvidia, Adobe?
yeah. Well, first I started like English, as teaching kids and then adults, and then, it was a little bit into communicational skills for business. And then I received an offer from a company from China called Liu Lishuo, and they're specialized in hiring external sources to teach corporate training for soft skills. And for every single group, you don't know who are you teaching, right? So I had no idea it was NVIDIA, Vano, like World Association of Nuclear Operation, Dell, Adobe, Dell, Asus, TSMC later, JP Morgan as well. You just have to do an interview that's anonymous. You don't see the other person, and then you just start. And I was like sweating bullets because like the interview like difficulty was immense, and like the questions, the what if scenarios of how are you going to teach this and groups, and I realized that it's something big. And then I received an offer back in maybe like 2019 that I'm going to teach semiconductor companies, and I had no idea what semiconductor was at that point. But like it took me maybe 3 months to realize that this is going to be the biggest industry on the planet for sure, because as they are right now, building microchips and AI and everything. And yeah, I mean, the transitions were it was smooth, I would say, but kind of expected. Um, I learned how to live with fear and anxiety and nervousness to like of the unexpected. Being an athlete, as you already know, you're always trying to expect something, but it never actually happens, and you're always waiting on somebody else. Even though you're playing the best, you're waiting for managers, coaches, bosses, or whoever it might be in the club. So, like, it was very natural to me to be kind of, casual about it. And I think they liked it, you know. And I realized that my experience beforehand culturally was great, and they liked that I was already respecting the Chinese culture and the industry itself, and how they have those cross communication problems with different cultures, and
Hmm.
that was my way in.
Hmm. And so, how long were you doing that for, like the semiconductor industry? And at what point did you start seeing signals that there might be a startup idea in this
Yeah.
space?
Wow. I mean, so many things have happened. Like from 2019, beginning of 2019, when I started heavily teaching corporate training, I've done over 30,000 lessons, and semiconductor was always there. But other projects come into play. You know, the company was giving me the platform. Leo Show was giving me constantly different projects, and you were starting to see from the same culture, you're seeing different industries, but the same problem that, like you're having a session in the middle of the working day for them, like 20 people, some of them are sleeping, some of them are leaving, but eventually they do come back. So I started to do different things out of the box, out of the book, like to keep them engaged, uh, giving them a lot of exercises, see what I can do, like how am I going to do this? How am I going to activate them? And then I realized, okay, so no matter what I do, like the time that I'm spending with them is definitely the first problem. No matter what I do in that time, like whether the exercises are super cool, the exercises are engaging, they are doing role play between each other, it's still like not what I want it to be, because like it took like 3 hours of training per day for them during the working day, right? In the middle of the working hours, or for some of them, depending on the time zone, it would be in their free time. So you see that they're not happy. So my first idea came to my mind, like there has to be a way to like simplify this, right? And then it was like, okay, like what about micro sessions, like something to engage them. And then I started giving them homework. That
Hmm.
was, just like a couple of exercises.
And were they doing the homework?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because they did have the homework nonetheless, but
Okay.
it was very long, like assessment style questions
Okay.
and stuff. So I was trying to do this. I was having a manager that was overseeing all the projects
Okay.
on Skype back then. And then I was forcing students to do voice messages for 1 minute. And then they would send voice messages to my manager. My manager would send to me, and then I would analyze all of their voice messages and give them feedback, like how to be better, what to do. And in that same time, I was doing a course program for Business College of Communication in Boston University. And then I was applying a bunch of tips and tricks and advice that I got from professors there. And I was like, basically, like dots started connecting, but I didn't know where were they connecting. But I really realized, like, okay, application of knowledge in short bursts is definitely something they react to very positively. So when they were doing homework, I realized that they wanted more. Right? It was like a minute of speaking. For everybody had a situation. They speak 1 minute. They send the voice message back. I give them the feedback. They can redo it if they want to. If it's perfect, we just move on. Something more challenging, right? And then it came to my mind, like, what if we can create like a platform, but it was so early, like I didn't know how to do it. Like I know there was Udemy, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, but I was like, come on, that's already boring. Like how am I going to create courses? But idea was like then going into my mind. And but startup was there, right? It was there, but it was so early, like I didn't know how to execute it, the voice messages, whatnot. And then AI, started,
Hmm. The AI
doing the
boom started. Yeah.
breakthrough. Yeah, yeah. And then I was thinking, like, what if AI can help me with this? But everywhere I went, seeing like Duolingo, you were taking all the positives, all the negatives, the feedbacks, research, and then the research started,
Hmm.
and then
So
the
talk to me
research.
about research. You mentioned that you wrote like a research paper on how we actually as humans learn
Mhm.
and how we develop skills,
Yep.
both like so mostly focused on like soft skills, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that research paper.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, BU was heavily involved in like giving a bunch of programs and courses to elevate your teaching capabilities.
Okay.
And then
Online courses, right?
online courses,
Okay.
yeah. And then COVID hit. And then they extended those courses and they were all free, but nobody showed up. It was boring. It was like about language psychology, psychology of human culture,
neurolinguistics, psycholinguistics, all the good stuff for me at least. And then I was like um, attending those courses with a professor from Russia, I believe it was. And I was just passively listening, taking some notes. And the exercise was to build an idea of abstract. How would you like execute this in your own field? Because every single, you have not only single vision of teaching, you have different aspects of teaching, K-12 education, middle school, everybody requires a different approach, right? So I was trying to fit in my approach to corporate training because I realized that this is something that I want to do. And basically create an abstract on how can people execute skills, both verbally and non-verbally, differently through cultures. And it was like, okay, when it comes to soft skills, culture plays such a crucial role, especially for Asians. And then I was doing a lot of research on Chinese culture, on Putonghua, Mandarin, and how they speak, how they communicate, how they execute skills. And I realized, like, within Chinese premise, like on the mainland China, they're doing amazing job. As soon as they leave the border, they come different culture. They're different people because they really are non-adaptable to other cultures. And my idea was like, what if I can teach them like culture versus culture, like giving them different perspectives on one single skill and teach them on single one of them. And that's how abstract came into play. And I started with them with BU like late 2019, and research paper, I took it all by myself with one professor from Taiwan, Yung Chen Tsai, amazing AI specialist. She has a lot of experience, PhD in LLMs, and I finished it in, like, I believe March 2024 was when I actually finished the whole research paper. How to execute any skill, whether it's soft primarily, hard technical skills, through the methodical sequential learning within just 6 minutes a day. So, like, I believe that if I talk about my methodology, it would take like about 20 hours of podcast at least. But that was like the end result. And using AI to, actually push users to elevate their skills through mimicking pressure situations in real life, whether no matter the skill. So actually doing them, not passive learning, not gathering knowledge passively and just listening, but waking up your brain by actually executing those skills through different exercises that adapt culturally, but also to the industry and company, and then role, and then the end user. So I did like reverse engineering, basically, end user, and then it adapts to the endpoint, which is the company's employee, and then their role, and then the company, then the industry where they're in, and then cultures they work with, and the cultures where they come from. And that was all taken into consideration when we were building the research paper. And, it exploded, apparently. So,
Okay, so out of the research paper that was, you mentioned, mid of 2024, you started refine. Yeah, you started refine beginning of 2025, right?
yeah.
What was what happened between March of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, the start of Refine? Talk to us about that and how you found your co-founders who are gonna help you actually build this
Yeah.
AI teacher, in a
Yeah.
sense that's going to do these 6-minute lessons and all that. So
Yeah. So even before I finished, I knew that I was going to build a startup.
I mean, I didn't know it was named startup. I knew that I was going to build something for myself, not working for someone else, right? Because like the impact that I had, I was, visiting University of Warsaw in Poland, doing methodology research, and had a panel talking about it to the university. The branch for communication skills, different language, culture, and basically, what happened was when I finished, I was like brainstorming with myself, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna, create progressive learning? Okay, you have 6 minutes, you have the hypothesis, you have the theory, you have everything, but like, how are you going to like progressively give people to improve, and how are you going to give this perpetual learning, right? So they can constantly improve. So I was creating that system, like HR tool, and then giving a couple of skills at the same time, progress bars, Every skill has a level, achievement system, gamification. And then I was brainstorming with my best friends, basically. One of my co-founders is my godfather, right? So he's the front-end engineer. He knows the gamification, built a bunch of games for mobile. And so he knows like how it works. And my other co-founder is also my friend for 30 years. He's like back-end engineer, but he was already into AI, built systems for Pearson for a certain amount of time. So I was like talking to them, just brainstorming, like just like a mad scientist, like I had a bunch of like papers on the wall explaining how I would like to do like the roadmaps, stealing things from Duolingo, like progressive learning roadmaps, monthly courses. How am I going to create it? And they said, like, we can do this. Actually, we can maybe, potentially brainstorm which technology can be used. And I was like, you guys want to be my co-founders? It would be amazing. And they were like, yeah, but we have no idea what you're saying. Like, this is like alien language for us. So I was like, I'm going to draw everything so then you can understand what I exactly want. And they were like, that would be perfect. So I was like drawing roadmaps, hexagons, and I was drawing like the progress bar, burger bar, website, how it's gonna look, like these stakes here. And then like I had all papers on the wall, blackboard, everything was there. And then I realized that AI was a little bit of a barrier, and the potential hiccup. So I called my professor, PhD in LM from Taiwan, and she said, like, I believe it's possible. It's very difficult to have a research paper put into, AI model, so it doesn't hallucinate. Or I had no idea what hallucinations was, and but she was saying like Google is the way. Google is definitely something that you should try. Gemini, and then like in January we created a prototype for semiconductor, like 3 scenarios, RNG, randomly generated, and I gave it to all my students. Gave it to the platform if they can, just put it to a test, and that was the homework, the new homework, right? And then I realized that people wanted to pay for it, so I put a donate button. If they would like to see something like this at scale, they can, doesn't matter what price is. They can always ask me for consultation, for feedback, and we made like 50,000 euros in like maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And then we realized, okay, so definitely there is something. And then Google charged us like 4,000 bucks for using their services, but offered almost 500,000 in return in AI credits to build, and it was like for the first time I felt that somebody was pushing me to be better. Not like, I realized like finally some good news, right? Like, because you get used to, this sport life that's very harsh and ruthless, that actually people, when you're good, they're pushing you to be better always. And then in March we started Refine, and yeah, rest is history.
Okay. So you started Refine out of a city in Serbia called Niš. Niš is not the capital; it's a smaller city.
Yep.
And it's definitely not Silicon Valley. What do you see as the biggest disadvantages of building a startup from a smaller city, and what are like unexpected advantages that you had?
Unexpected event. Wow, great question. Well, we have a wonderful hub in Niche that I didn't know that it was so resourceful.
Mhm.
Science Technology Park. I know there's one in Belgrade, in a couple other cities as well, but I thought, like, as we talk about scales of the city, Belgrade was the it girl, right? But they saw my potential very early. Gotta give a shout out to them for also providing. I mean, you met some of them. You know how they behave around us and what they think about us. But giving me a chance, like, why don't you present this to the committee of Science Technology Park? And they gave me an office and networking events, and they pushed me into this world of entrepreneurship a little bit faster. But like at the same time, that is one of the you know barriers, is that you are unseen. Unfortunately, there's so many talent out there. Like I'm thinking, like if I could do it as a soccer player, like I believe anybody can. But at the same time, it requires a lot of more negative stuff, like suffering experience, bad experience. I believe it's far more valuable in the startup ecosystem than like having, great experiences, like, yeah, like, I mean, generally it is true, right? You gotta suffer so you can learn, but in the startup world, it's so much more amplified. And like when you fail, nobody knows. When you succeed, nobody knows. Like that's how it felt in the beginning. And I'm so happy that, I mean, you, for example, elevating, this ecosystem and bringing talents, to light. And, the conference and what you've done with your accelerator and everything is like giving the chance for these people. But the city, like overall, like it's a barrier by default because of the geography, and everything. And I believe that's something that we are yet to, improve upon as a country, as the city. But we're getting there. So many things have changed in the past 6 months. I see that people are actually seeing the potentials of, our mentality, culture, that we can actually, do something
Yeah.
outstanding.
So you mentioned failure and suffering and then learning from
Yeah, so much.
experiences. So much suffering.
Yeah.
We in the Balkans here, we don't talk about failure, right?
Yeah.
It is viewed as a bad thing in a way,
Yeah.
right? It's the word is called grešiti, which
Yeah.
the root is greh, which means sin, right? To sin.
Yeah.
If you're failing, you're a sinner, right?
Yeah.
Which is not how failure is perceived in other cultures,
Yeah.
specifically in the U.S.
Mhm.
In the U.S., they have this thing where they say failure is just a stepping stone to success.
Right.
You only fail if you stop or you die.
Yeah.
Like that's
sure.
failure, right?
I agree.
So talk to us about not a specific failure, but like the different um, mistakes that you've made along the way while building Refine in the last year. Um, do you recall any specific examples or things that come to mind where you're like, if I had only known that, or if I had only
Oh yeah.
did this in a different way?
Yeah.
Just like before I say anything, as a disclaimer,
Mhm.
like every bad thing that happened that was a failure, like is definitely, I believe, wouldn't bring me here, right?
Sure.
And having things, the clients and successful pilots and all of that. So it's still a positive thing at the end. But back then, you know, all the people that tried to push us down, or making us lose faith, like I'm very grateful for that,
Mhm.
right? But I wasn't back then,
And
the,
back then is 6 months ago
yeah,
or 9 months ago.
even
So
like trust me, for me it feels like years,
yeah.
like, and so many things have happened and I'm very happy for it, but you have to evolve very fast. So the biggest mistake that I've made was not letting go of my ego early.
Okay.
Right? And I did let it go, as you and I talked about. We met just when we started Refine, but before that, I was like pushing myself, and I was. Uh, it was not seen, to the public, that I was not, like having a lot of ego strokes and stuff, and not being able to handle feedback. But then I'm so happy that your guys from USNU said that I received feedback extremely well, which means that I evolved, right? But if I have done it earlier, I definitely believe that some things will be better, because I believe that some things that blocked us right off the bat in March, we would have done things earlier. But it's still, like I learned to teach myself how to believe that it was meant to be, because when I look at the other stories and talk to other founders and different startups within the hub, is that like everything happens much longer for them, you know? So I'm always thinking like, okay, back to that, right? But from my perspective, it was like I should have let go of my ego earlier. I did, and you told me specifically, and David and the other guys, that I received feedback very well. that I take it and I don't react to it. And I really don't. It was just like a skill, you know, you need to train. But that was definitely the biggest failure. And yeah, other than that, you know, I don't believe there was a place there was a place and time for a mistake in these 6 months. You know, like I believe in terms of like what you got after 6 months now, what we have, and how much time it took, there was no space for error, right? So I faced mistakes and failures immediately, right? I felt like I was thrown into a pit, you know, like pitching in front, like the founder games, pitching in front of a bunch of startups that were existing for like 3 years, 4 years, and I'm like there with, you know, just butt naked with a pitch deck, and then you feel like, okay, you gotta take a step back a little bit, buddy. You know, like, you know, this is not how this works, you know. And but yeah, learning from the get-go, you know, ripping the band-aid off, and then, you know, we pivoted a bunch of times. And everything that was potentially a failure for us, it wasn't, you know. And I was communicating all the time with my founders, you know, like how to face it so we can go into the right direction always. So yeah.
Can you tell us like one specific example of not a failure, mistake, or whatever, but let's say a learning that you had with working and talking and communicating with different people in this ecosystem, right? You don't have to name names or anything like that, but if we can hear some kind of juicy
yeah.
story,
Oh yeah,
that would be
people
amazing.
try to scam me, like pretty much, you know.
Okay.
Because like think about it like this: I learned myself to be an educator, right? Non-formal education, and then I forced my way into formal education, right?
Okay.
And now we're building PhD with one of your guys, with Chuck. Like shout out to Chuck, brilliant guy, and we're doing the white paper and PhD analysis and everything. But back then, like you shove yourself forcibly, right? Like I gotta do something, right? And then you, from that kind of tempo and speed, you just jump into the startup world, which is completely different. So I had no idea that we were doing a good thing as a startup, right? I knew that I was doing a good thing as a research paper, but other people that were experienced, like angel investors, advisors, you know, whatever, they knew because they are dealing with startups daily. And I had people try to scam me, you know, taking equity from the get-go. I had no idea what equity was, you know. Had some people to watch my back that were, you know, building a company with me as a C corp in Delaware, like those great things. Very lucky to have them, but I had, you know, people trying to force me to stop doing what I do completely unless I give them something, because the way they were communicating terminology that I had no idea about, I do now, was like I have to trust them because they sound very cool, right? They sound like they know what they're doing. So like, oh, why don't I give them 5% of equity for giving me this kind of advice? Because he can maybe open some doors, right? And then what happened is that, you know, they never reach out, they stall, they, you know, prolong the raising rounds, you know, they're calling themselves angel investors because they invested somewhere $1,000, got a hat, a vest, you know, like a whole starter pack and everything. And fortunately for us, it just took a little bit of time, nothing more than that. But a lot of scamming people were there, you know, which is, we can go back to disadvantages of, you know, our culture. I'm not saying that we're brilliant people. I'm not saying nobody's scammies, but you gotta be careful. They're everywhere, of course, of course. You know, you're in a pit where everybody's fighting competition, right? So of course somebody's gonna come up to be like, oh, you know, let me take this. But I wasn't able to have the luxury to have somebody to tell me from the get-go, oh, this is not for you, right? Like I do have you now, and you know, the advisors from US who are always giving me, you know, advice on what to do.
Steering you in the in the right direction,
yeah.
or like trying to steer you off a mountain
Yeah.
where you're going to fall.
So that definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely much needed because we do have it's a very interesting interesting ecosystem generally in the Balkans because a lot of emerging startups, a lot of emerging technologies, a lot of emerging new business people, right? So it's just we have to learn and we have to get advice from people who've done it
Yeah.
and who are giving us advice because they want us to be better, not because they want to take advantage of us,
Yeah,
right?
for
And
sure.
we had a partner at one of the regional VC funds in the last episode where he basically said like between 20 and 30% of the startups that they're really interested in investing, once they get into like the due diligence process, they just see like improper documentation and legal challenges
Yeah.
and founders who have 10% of equity instead of
Yeah.
having 90% of equity,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, just we on in one way we have to be careful, but in another way we really have to think strategically from this region how to position ourselves better for the US market, for the European
Yeah.
market, because at the end of the day, you have to think global from day one, right? If you're only
Yes.
thinking
Oh yeah.
local or regional, that's not going to be enough.
Mhm.
And the investors that you take on, the customers that you sign, you really have to be, in a way, careful and to think strategically
Yeah.
through those decisions, right? Not make any rash decisions.
Yeah, I mean the technology is the way technology is growing and the industry is changing, the economy, the politics of it, everything, right? You have to think globally from day one. You have to. There's no like, oh, I'm gonna start locally and then I'm gonna grow. That's not gonna happen. Somebody's just gonna walk all over you, right? Some other startup. You gotta be prepared where to open up a company, where to set everything up, documentation from day one to be ready because nobody's joking around, right? Like especially if you want to go to US or you want to go to the Chinese market, they're very harsh about it. You got to prepare because in the beginning these people that are calling themselves, like investors, advisors, they can help you. They have people that can help you or they have people that I have people, right? I'm you they might help you, but you are not shooting yourself in the foot. You might as well shoot yourself in the head, and like never expect any growth from your startup because you're going to reach a blockage from every single fund, every single VC saying like, you know what, you know, you should have thought better,
Yep. Yep.
like you want to do like David said, for example, like you want to do short-term success for a long-term failure, basically. That's what you're doing. And that's what many startups do actually. But I don't blame them because they don't know.
Yeah, and that's
Knowledge has to be there as well, like which brings me back to the scale SEE, right? Like what you guys are doing, educating people and startups. Like, yeah, you got a great idea, but you got to understand the perspective of documentation and paperwork, how important that is. You could get amazing, how many products we know that are outstanding, amazing, right? Flat out amazing, but they never see the light of day because of, you know, trust issues or egoistic founders, or something like that.
yeah. So talk to us about that part, right? Documentation. You have a company in the U.S.
Hmm.
It's a Delaware registered entity. You're doing everything to protect your code on a legal basis,
Yeah.
and you also started talking with a lot of like major corporations regionally, but generally globally as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. Well,
And you were able to get letters of intent. For anybody who doesn't know, a letter of intent is basically a document stating that a company or potential client of your company is willing to invest money as a customer once you do XYZ, meaning once you build a product or once you reach a certain level of stability of the platform or whatever. So you were able to get a couple of letters of intent from big
yeah.
from big customers, right? Talk to us about that because that doesn't happen by accident, right?
Yeah.
What's happening there with refining?
Yeah. Well, I know generally how corporate system works and what suits, our ICPs. I knew that from the get-go,
my ideal customer persona or ICPs, like the HRs, team leads, people who are within learning and in people empowerment, people in culture, right? Was that, we can create a pilot that was going to be like, okay, we can embed every single huge corporations that were globally, like automotive industry or IT or manufacturing, right? They have embedded systems that connects all companies worldwide, right? So I was like, what if I can implement Refine there so they can just add users and every single user from that system can just, like test, pilot, whatever, do the freemium. And knowing the ICP, knowing the budgets, knowing the pricing, because I was on the both, sides of the spectrum, I realized that, like if you give them, cutting costs, better efficiency, something that employees are actually going to love and do, and you can potentially remove the barriers of organization to go to academies to do training, calling coaches like myself online or on site, scheduling venue and spending on average 2,000 euros per employee per year for training that none of them love. We've done like, when I was doing research, I've done over like 200 interviews. Like every single interview was no longer than 10 seconds because at the first question, you get everything you want. You just give them, would you do this or this? And then,
And they would
and
pick.
thank you, so over, go next, right? And then you know that because even though the company says, the employees are not the ones that make decisions, they have a decision, culturally, like when they want to do something like that, having impact, because you know that if they want to do it, the impact is going to be just 10 times higher, right? So knowing the ICP, knowing the champions internally, we gave them piloting program, um, just couple of lessons, like maybe 10 to 15 lessons, depending on the size of the company, of the 6-minute lessons that naturally just adapts to their industry and their company. Completely free,
Mhm.
right? They can stop anytime.
How did that? How did that look like? Who were the companies that you reached out to, if you can name, or
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I
and
mean,
what was the response for them?
yeah, so like some of the companies I signed the NDA for, so I can't name it, but some of them I can, like from the automotive industry. Leone is one of, if not the biggest automotive company on the planet with more than 100,000 employees. It was a lot of regulations, a lot of communication, a lot of meetings, presentations, a lot of questions, a lot of, and it was kind of like otherworldly experience, them reacting so positively because it was just a successful pod. I just wanted validation so I can, you know that I'm in the right direction in terms of customers. Not only we got letters of intent from Leone and Johnson Electric, which is also a huge automotive player. It's a coincidence, by the way. It's not organized that I'm targeting automotive industry. It's just they're local in our city, but globally present. So it's just, you know, it happened like that through ICPs, and especially that ICPs worked for Leone and Johnson, like so they are communicating with each other, and giving them a freemium for a month, and then they would reach out after 2 days, 5 days, just saying, send us the offer because we want to use this. And then you're like, hold on, I didn't build a product fully yet. So you're like scheduling because you're thinking, okay, so we started this in July, like meetings, and I started earlier to do because I know the sales cycles are pretty long.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so if I start now by July, then maybe like March, I'm gonna be like signing them if everything goes right.
Yeah, March next year.
Yeah, 2026. And I was like, okay, so on August 5th, they're gonna start. They started piloting. On August 10th, they sent an email. They want an offer. And I was like, what am I going to offer them? Like, I know what I want, but like, I have to talk to my CDO now, right? He has to make decisions. So we were like, okay, we got to speed it up. We got to hire more people. We got to raise money then again, so we have to like serve the demand, right? And the same thing happens within the same week for Johnson Electric. And I'm talking thousands of employees for the offer because they don't want to start with like, oh, I want to start with 50, right? No big corporations want to do that. If you're solving a big problem like we do, right? We're solving problem, cutting budgets, for like 10x, 20x, suddenly, and it's something that's fully GDPR compliant, embedded into their system. They can track progress. You're making their job easier. Training fits. You're cutting budget. It's a win, right, for them. So they're like,
Plus, you're putting AI into
yeah,
their digital transformation agenda, and they love
so
that.
like the ICPs are like super happy because they will be making a huge decision to bring external provider like that right on the table, and they're gonna get praises all over the place. And that happened with 3 corporations, but we got letters of intent from 8.
Okay.
Right, so these are the newest ones, and this was happening like within now, right? In this from half of September basically until now. We got new pilots as well. Um, the way it happened was like so fast that even though as a communicator and a communicologist, I don't know how to express it because of the speed, sheer velocity of things, but definitely was something that I didn't expect. And I'm very happy to say that we are all planned for the 2026 budget of these corporations, right? And now you know that, okay, I found the right spot, right? This is the sweet spot. This is what we're going to do. And this is definitely amazing. And then we started, and the very important thing that I didn't say is that through these situations like piloting, we developed so many new features. Like from 5 languages that we plan to have, now we got 26. So now when you offer a company, skill sets for people that are within, like from Serbia, and they don't need communication skills, so you give them the skill set training in Serbian in the same way, right? Because we managed to fine tune our AI into cultural differences from that language. You know, all our letters that we have, our language is very complex, as you know, which from Serbian opened, Russian and different languages. From Chinese, you open up Korean, Japanese, right? From English, you open Spanish, French. So the branches that languages are connected to, and we developed so many new features, not only sent offers and like being planned for the next year budgets, but it opened up, they did refer us to their other companies who they're working with, you know and so it just opened up the pipeline naturally, organically. And because we are embedded globally, so language is not a barrier anymore, the product itself is not a barrier anymore because you're embedded into their existing platforms. You know that you know anybody can use it within their corporations, right? So it can be from China, Egypt, Morocco, Serbia, France, Germany at the same time. We're just giving them the access to it, right? And we give them at a fraction of a cost. And we're not forcing them to eliminate the traditional training, but as we go back to the interview, pick which one you want. It's a no-brainer. They're just gonna slowly just pull it away. Like one of the corporations did an amazing decision. They made a decision to create a talent management pool of 2,000 employees that they're gonna use Refine for as a start. And every single employee that matches the KPIs for their position, the reward is going to be, hey, no more training for you like this. You're going to use Refine, which is perfect stimulation for them because everybody knows how handicapped they are when they're doing this training. It takes a whole workday from you, and then you have to work in your free time to finish other things, right?
Yep.
And that's how it happens. So now it grows just organically.
Yep.
If I can say it like that.
So talk to us about next steps in the journey. You're at the moment raising capital for your pre-seed round. You are almost at the finish line with signing first 1, 2, or 3 customers for
Yeah.
3 customers. What's next?
Well, yeah, I mean, like we are finalizing our pre-seed round. We are still actively raising because, like, as you noticed, everything is happening in the past 2 months.
Couple of months, yeah.
It's ridiculous, and but people are paying attention. People are following up. People are extremely interested. Uh, we're just gonna follow that. We're serving the demand. We're hiring new people, and we did. We have a little bit of bigger team enough to serve this demand and grow better. We are very proudly working with you for the U.S. market and going to the U.S. companies. At the same time, we're going to China in the beginning of December because we have an accelerator there that's opening up B2B market for us as well. meetings with corporations. I'm going to be traveling there myself. So basically, scaling as much as possible, using this momentum, using this innovation where every single corporation has to use AI within their systems to cut costs and improve efficiency.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're using that train to be the pioneer here, and yeah, we're just not stopping.
So I'm gonna ask you the last question, which is very it's I'm very curious to hear your answer. And you're on this journey. It's been one hell of a year through a lot of mistakes, a lot of challenges. You went through a couple of accelerator programs. You got first letters of intent. You're now speaking with investors. You're learning
Yeah,
quite a lot, and this year has probably been the biggest
yeah, year of my life. Yeah,
year of
for
your
sure.
life. How are you handling that personally and like emotionally? And where do you find happiness, my friend?
Well, I'm not taking it very well. I I don't feel so happy,
Okay.
if that makes sense. I mean, I'm not trying to. These are amazing things, but it doesn't affect me as much as I wanted it to affect me, right? Because like only I know how it feels to reach that goal. Once you reach it, you're like, great. I am. Oh, yesterday we had a meeting with 10 investors at the same time, right? All of them, I want to give you right. And I'm like having no reaction whatsoever, like literally. And I'm not saying this as a bad thing, but emotionally, I'm not taking it very well. You know, sleepless nights. Only I know it. People don't see that, and they're never going to see that because you have to show up. Because I am the vision of Refine. I'm the representation of the startup. Uh, Even my voice is not like I lost my voice, right? I mean, my voice is different. So I guess these are all the things you have to pay for in order to succeed, and it's not easy. It shouldn't be easy, and it's never going to be easy, right? Um, Finding hobbies was never more difficult than now. I used to have I have so many of them. Watching movies. I'm a very big gym addict. A lot of gaming. It's so difficult to find time now, and you feel like you're slipping. A little bit. Like everything is like my girlfriend like definitely thinks about killing me 2-3 times a day. At least. Like I'm like, this guy's gonna invest in us. Who he is? He's amazing. And she was like, yeah, wow. She has no idea what I'm talking about. And but it becomes your life. But she's pulling me back into the neutral position because I can vent. Venting is so important.
Especially to your girlfriend.
Yeah, that came out wrong, right? But like it's not easy. My advice is like you gotta accept it. I accepted it that it's gonna be very difficult. I cried so many nights because I thought about giving up maybe like 100 times at least. That's even a low number, man. Like I would like literally have when I would, even though I knew that corporate sales cycle is long, but I was doing everything perfectly, but I got no response. I would like overthink so many things in the middle of the night, and then I would like ask GPT to be my therapist, just so I can like cope at that time. Um, you know, of course, you have to find a middle ground, but I believe that if you want to build something big, something truly impressive, people got to see your passion, and that passion comes from these moments where you're emotionally unstable in terms of like feeling weak, feeling sick of everything, feeling tired, losing your voice, losing maybe health sometimes, losing yourself a little bit to not do the things you love, you're pulling them away. I believe that when you do that and you bounce back, that passion just comes organically. When we first met, you said like my passion was unmatched. I believe the only reason is because of those emotional barriers that I live with. I still have them, and I believe that it's always going to be with me. It's only going to come in a different shape. You know, Nothing is going to change when we raise a seed round or series, and nothing's going to change.
I'm still gonna, like pull the hair out of my head and like be like, oh my God, and get nervous and be afraid, right? But I just believe that you have to be aware that it's part of the journey, so then you can come to a podcast and share a great story, so people can know what happened. I guess.
Yeah, crying in sleepless nights. What a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
story.
yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that we as an accelerator might benefit from having somebody like a burnout specialist or like a psychologist who works with some of our founders to talk through like when they reach a point when they are burnt out and they need to speak with somebody who's a professional?
Do you think we need somebody here to
In
like to share
in our accelerator
accelerator?
to be as
For the next batch.
as an add-on. Yeah, yeah,
For the next batch? Oh yeah, for sure.
for sure.
Yeah, like I mean, first of all, like I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about your accelerator that much, but if I can,
Sure, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, there were some situations within your accelerator where psychiatrist was or psychologist or whoever was definitely needed because of so many things that the Americans had to, like teach us in such a short amount of time and the culture. I handled it wonderfully because like I worked with the Americans, as you know, before, but like definitely is needed because it's a huge leap. Like people don't know how difficult it is and how like even I don't know, I still haven't been to US and hopefully we will go soon next year. But like communication wise, culturally understanding, right? And sensitivity, people need to be aware of how difficult emotionally it is to accept the American stance on how startup system works.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
yeah.
For
And
that,
their style of communication, which is this thing
yeah.
is shit, this thing is shit,
Oh,
this works, blah, blah, and then you're like,
Yeah.
does he hate me or
Oh,
is
yeah,
this the way that he communicates?
They never say your product is great. They never say anything is great. They're just focusing on fixing things concisely, short sentence burst, and you are feeling like shit for a whole day unless you learn how to handle it. And what they like in return is being harsh back so they can see that you are having that grit, right? But, some people don't handle it very well.
Yeah.
And
they also like to see progress. Like,
oh, yeah.
if I told you 10 these 10 things are not going to work, I want you to tell me that 7 of them are going to work and 3 of them you're going to fix them. And,
Yeah.
or,
So there, that kind of mentality the complete US market has to be, I believe, carefully embedded into our culture. Like some startups are going to shut down if they just, are not getting any help for sure. Like you're going to kill their idea, because I know that even though I've been working on this for almost a decade, I still felt so many times like when I talk about the people scamming me that I should pivot to something completely different. And one part of my brain believed them actually, because you are going into an unknown world. So definitely you should bring somebody as an add-on to teach them about these things, so they can vent, or just ask for advice or just, learn the cultural acceptance of the US market at least, you know? Maybe some founders could help them, not as a psychiatrist, definitely, but for the burnout, even I think founders that um, went through this, process are gonna be better advice because the people who been through the same or similar thing with you are actually going to believe you and know how you feel actually, and really give you an authentic and transparent advice. So I think the best psychiatrist would definitely be as an add-on to the accelerator. Yeah, some founders,
all right,
for sure.
cool. I wanna finish this podcast off with a couple of like very quick and short questions. Um, you you mentioned hobbies that you love doing, so I'm not gonna ask that because you probably don't have time for that anymore.
Yeah.
What is something that you believe to be true that others don't agree with?
like what I mentioned about suffering and everything. I believe people know that, but they don't actually believe that.
Why not?
Because everybody's afraid to fail, man. I mean, like it's so like it's like you're jumping without a parachute, but you don't know how deep it is because it's dark, but it's actually like a centimeter, deep. They know, like, oh yeah, for sure, because they heard Jensen Huang speaking in a podcast or Alex Hormozy saying you have to do the volume frequency, right? But people don't actually, I believe they don't understand that they don't believe it because they don't understand it. You can only believe something if you actually can resonate with it. I believe, like, truly believe. As we talk about belief as a system, like I believe in this is gonna work because I know what doesn't work and I have like such a good push for it. I believe that's something, like that you actually have to fail so you can succeed.
Okay. What's one book that you've read as a founder in the last year that
Oh yeah, Pivot by Jenny Blake.
Pivot by Jen Blake White?
It was a gift for my birthday, which you did too, by one of my investors
Mhm.
and investment bankers. I pivoted a lot, like a lot. And uh, in the book, like every 10 pages, that it says in a different just way, pragmatically, that pivoting is a natural process of a growing startup. Like that was for me such a, it gets me
Pivoting is say that again. Pivoting is
like the crucial step
the
to
crucial
grow a good
to
startup,
grow a
right?
good startup.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like,
that's a pretty good sentence.
yeah, and it's crucial. You should, if you're not pivoting, you're failing, right? So because like customers should shape your product.
Yeah.
They should shape. I had no idea what that means when I was reading it, right? But then I realized, oh my God, like the aha moment was that because I was reading it very recently, I realized how much we changed from March until now. Like how many features the pilots, the companies built for us actually. Not built for us literally, but giving us an idea, like the HR tool to be completely modular. You can assign client departments within the HR tool, give them skills. You can assign control, how much control employee has, how much company has. You can like give them freedom to have the dashboard tracking progress, how you're just listening and you're observing. If you listen very carefully, they're literally telling you how to build your startup for 100% success. So yeah, that's something I recommend for sure. But I believe people don't believe in that as well. Yeah. When I talk about startups, like especially in our city that are feeling hard stuck for years, I'm like, why don't you try to go B2B? Right? They're B2C. Like, why try B2B? Like you're a medtech startup. Clinics might need it, or you can pitch to university as a case study. It might open some doors, right? Like, oh yeah, they don't understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. Like I wanted to be B2C in the beginning, so think about it.
Yeah.
To be corporate training in your pocket for everyone so they can elevate their business skills.
Yep.
But I realized that B2B, but I had no idea until I read that book.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jenny Blake Pivot is definitely the way.
No, it's a funny thing about getting advice and then not doing anything. One of my favorites. It's not a book. It's like a short paper by Benjamin Franklin. It's called The Way to Wealth. It was written in 17th century, right? And it's like 6 pages, all written out with this idea and story in mind, where there's this like old guy who's talking to like a group of like 20 people because they were asking him like how can we be more wealthier, how can we not pay so much taxes to like the United Kingdom or the British government, because like 17th century they were still under the British rule, right? And he like spoke for like 6 pages about all of the things that you can do, every advice imaginable that you can do to like do the right things in order to be successful, right?
Yeah.
And then the text ends with everybody thought that it was a very inspirational talk. everybody loved it, and then immediately they practiced the contrary.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, yeah.
So that's basically how the text ends, and I'm like, okay, this is a secret that it's not an actual secret. It's just people don't practice it,
Yeah.
and that's
I
I
mean,
think
how many
it's
startups
still
did you
true
talk to,
today.
like for your accelerator? And you and I talked about it. How many startups did you talk to that, uh, you know, have great potential, and you give them such an amazing advice of what it takes, and you just either it's stubbornness or they're holding monologue because people love to talk about their startup.
Yeah,
They
I mean,
love
it's
to do
it's
that. Yeah.
the biggest problem isn't that. I think the biggest problem is when they say, yeah, I agree with you,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then they don't
They
do
don't do it.
anything,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, what's the effing point, you know?
Yeah.
All right. What's one guest that you think we should definitely bring on the podcast, like an entrepreneur or investor that you admire?
Well, I have a couple of people in mind from startup perspective. I don't know if you plan to bring recruiter here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Danilo is absolutely gorgeous guy. I love him and love what he does. Not that because we're complementary.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, the gorgeous part sounded very
yeah,
weird, but
yeah,
it's
no,
fine.
gorgeous way of thinking. The U.S. so healthy in mindset, so healthy guy in terms of like the way he thinks. It's so like a breeze in nature, right? I mean, every time I talk to him, like on LinkedIn or just we have a HR World HR Week
Yeah.
next month,
Yeah. I know.
and he's also having a presentation case study from KPIs to measurable results. I have a case study, the death of learning as we know it, and we are having a huge presentation with 10,000 HR people. You know, the people
Yeah.
from
I
the
know.
HR,
Yeah.
you know this, and. Uh, he's a communicator. He's great. He definitely has different perspective. He's an older startup than I am, right? Almost double, even more.
Mm.
And he has more experience. Definitely, he has been into US to Texas recently, right? Just
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
back. So definitely can share something. Just if he's not too lazy to come from Montenegro,
Yeah.
would be
we
great.
will bring him on. We'll
Yeah,
bring him on.
and definitely when it comes to investment standpoints, I think Dushan is could be the great, guest.
Mhm.
Um, Definitely a little bit slow can make some people fall asleep, but yeah, I'm joking, but a fantastic investor, fantastic guy, young, your age, right? And he definitely has some great investments in the past into startups from seed, series A, and now in pre-seed invested in us. So definitely he is from here, so he started to believe in the Serbian startup ecosystem to scale into US as well. So he's definitely somebody I really admire in terms of giving me a chance. You know, like he believed in seed, Series A, later stages. That it's difficult for a Serbian founder to find a place in this world, right? So
Mhm.
now he believes, and the way he shows me that he believes in me is something that I believe every founder should feel from his investor.
Mhm.
So definitely, those are my two picks. I love those two guys.
Cool.
So yeah,
Cool. Final question. What question have I not asked that I should have asked you, and that is a question that you don't get asked often?
well, you asked me all the right questions. I don't want to get into details. It's been a long podcast, but yeah, and I love to talk apparently. So you asked me about my soccer career, which means a lot to me,
Mhm.
and because it means a lot to me, I don't talk about it.
Mhm.
Right? Everything that I do, like working 24/7 on Refine, is just because of that discipline and that uh, that knowing how it is when everything is lost, when literally you have nothing, right? And if I was always afraid if I talk about it, it's actually going to make it worse for me, not better, but it actually does make it better. That's something that nobody asks because people look from result perspective, not from how you got there, right? If you have huge revenue, successful pilots, everybody's tapping your back. Oh, good job! Everybody's like, oh, keep going, or how can we get involved, help you, right? Which is awesome.
Help
of
you,
course.
help me.
Yeah. Which is awesome, of course, in its own perspective. But nobody. I love to work with people that knows how much I sacrificed and how much I really did in the past 6 to 7 months, and they admire me for it too, right?
Mhm.
Like how much work power it needs, the willpower and the work ethic, and you know the margin for error has to be low, the fear factor, the showing up all the time, showing up, just keep showing up, and the people who are either investors or partners or strategic partners that believe want to work with me because of that.
Mhm.
The money will follow.
Yeah.
It's just a trail, right? The money would follow, but those are the things, and that I'm not getting asked about that, which is okay, completely fine. I know the cultural differences, I understand it completely, but it's still deep in my heart. Like
Yeah.
I wish people would ask me a little bit more and understand a little bit more how you know difficult actually it is, and it's great to share it.
Yeah. Thank you for listening in and staying until the end. And we hope to bring more new, interesting investors, operators, and entrepreneurs from the region in the next episodes. Thanks for watching.
If you're a startup founder from the Balkans, you'll eventually need a US company. To sell into the US market, use Stripe, or raise VC money. But here's the problem. US lawyers charge between $600 and $1,000 an hour. Opening a bank account as a non-resident is a nightmare. You need a US phone number, operating address, and there are a lot of hidden costs plus lawyer lingo you can't understand. This is why we have partnered with Neobase. They are a team of Balkan founders who have been exactly where you are. They're 10 times cheaper than US lawyers, and they handle everything end to end, from the corporation, bank account setup, tax filings, and basically leaving you to focus on your own business. Head to neobase.co, book a free consultation, and mention Scale SE to get 10% discount off your LLC or C Corp setup.